Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the Buffett and Beyond Research Saturday ETF report, May 30th, 2026. And folks, this year is just moving right along, isn't it? And remember, if you want to walk on this beach like Jimmy Buffett once did at sunrise, then you've got to learn how to invest even better than Warren Buffett does now. And let us look at the QQQs, and boy, oh boy, we thought this market was going to stop right here. And nope, it didn't. It just went right on through as word came out of the Persian Gulf that some of the ships got through and there might be a 60-day extension on the ceasefire, even though there's been a little firing going on. But anyway, this market is starting to price in that things will calm down over there. The problem is, as we come down here, we see this black line crossing over this red line. Well, I shouldn't say it's a problem, but where is it going to turn down? And that's what we won't know until next week begins and we see what's happening over the weekend. And when we look at the year to date, well, the QQQs are up 20.5%. That's over 4% more, 4 percentage points more than last week. So the QQQs are moving right along. Yeah, those semiconductors, as we're going to see in a minute, are really rocking and rolling. And let us look at the S&P 500. And we can see the S&P 500 is just not quite catching up to the previous high over here of 75.17. And so we've got a little ways to go in here. So in other words, the market is not following the QQQs. The semiconductor and the AI build-outs, they're leading the way. And everybody's really happy about what's going on over in that direction. And let us look at the past week and what has been the top ETF. Well, the technology. And then followed by ARK Innovation, which we're going to see over the past year is not doing very well at all. But ARK Innovation up 5.71% over this past week. Home builders, wow, where's this coming from? Home builders and home construction up this week. NASDAQ up this week. Semiconductors up this week. But let's go down here to the bottom. Energy is doing poorly because that oil just can't be used. And the oil and gas exploration, and this is a little bit strange because the price of oil went up this week and then all of a sudden it fell down toward the end of the week, 2 days in a row. Now this is the third day and I'm recording this during the day on Friday, so we'll see what happens over here. But now these two that are at the top, or what at the top all year, are now at the bottom for the past week. But let's look at the year to date. And here we go, year to date. Yeah, you had the semiconductors, 93%. Can you believe that? Technology, 32, call it 33%. And now here is your oil and energy up here, which were leading the way this year and now have given way to technology and to the semiconductors. So at least we have things going up that are useful, where the oil and gas and energy just meant that the prices of oil and gas and energy were going up, and that eventually brings on a recession or possible recession. So the NASDAQ 100, here we are, over almost 21% up for the year, with the S&P up half that much. Yeah, so we're looking at the NASDAQ 100 up 20.6%, S&P up 10.89%. So you can see how far the NASDAQ 100 is going, and of course, most of these stocks are in the NASDAQ 100 stocks. And here's ARK Innovation, finally up, breaking into positive territory for the year, 4.99%. And again, down here, healthcare and financial just can't get out of the way. Home construction, even though it did good this past week, is still down for the year. Home builders now into positive territory for the year. Not much, but anyway, it's there. Okay, let us look at our top stocks. And we went to the computer and said, what if we just took the top stocks using the clean surplus methodology? So just use the computer program, and we went to several areas, like the top ETF projected for 2026, the top 3 years, the top 5 years. And so we took a bunch of those, and did any of them beat our picks? So with the semiconductors, for the first time in a very, very long time, many, many years, have our top picks not outperformed the ETF. This ETF is just going crazy. But just, I don't want to say blindfoldedly, but just going to the computer and picking the top stocks there, we are looking at a 74% return. Our top picks, 55% return. This is for the year to date. So folks, whichever one of these numbers you pick, you're doing fantastic. Now, let's look at technology. Well, we picked the top stocks from the computer, but our top stocks, which of course we use the computer for, but then we add some more items like, is revenue increasing? Is the growth of net income going up? We also take debt into that. So here we are outperforming like we usually do, not only the ETF itself, but what you can pick off the computer yourself. But let's come down here to the NASDAQ 100, and this is the portfolio I was talking about. We've had a hard time beating the QQQs themselves with our picks. Usually we totally outperform the NASDAQ 100 with our picks. This year we are not. Last year we were about tied with it. But if you just went to the computer and picked the top stocks, you're not only outperforming us, but you're outperforming the QQQs themselves. So here is where the top computer, and I'm not saying which ones, whether it's the 3-year ROE or the 1-year ROE or the 5-year ROE that we're using on this yet, because we're still experimenting with it. But the question is the computer outperforming us using the computer? So in other words, can you use the computer yourself without even talking to us, just have access to that computer and pick the top stocks? Well, when we get down to the S&P 500, S&P 500 is up 10.9%. We are almost doubling that. But if you just went in and picked the top 30 stocks off the computer using the clean surplus ROE, you're up 25%, 2.5 times that of the S&P 500. So here we are looking at something, oh boy, is the computer beating us? And are some of those indicators that we're using not working as well? Well, we're still doubling the S&P 500. So we're talking about not the nuts and bolts here. We're just talking about around the fringes. Can the computer outperform us just by blindfoldedly going in? And that's how I did my research. I went in, used the clean surplus return on equity, and over 4-year periods, see, we're just looking at year to date here, but over 4-year periods, just by using the computer and using the clean surplus ROE, outperformed over every 4-year period. So there's something, well, we know there's something there about clean surplus, because it's always outperformed, just about always outperforming the ETF or the index that we're using. Now we go to ARC innovation, I should say, not an intervention. The ARC innovation up 5% for the year. And our picks out of the tech area, which is what the ARC innovation is all about. But the ARC innovation includes a lot of the small stocks that can go from 1 to 1,000% return over the years, and we stay away from the small stocks. And so far we are doing very, very well relative to a portfolio of the large stocks, which we use, and the small stocks. So we don't like the small stocks because they haven't proven themselves. A lot of them haven't been around for more than 4 or 5 years. So we stay away from those kind of stocks because, folks, we want safety in our portfolio. And this portfolio, the ARC portfolio, had been down a lot last year. Now, when we go to home builders, well, the home builders are finally into the positive area, and home construction down here, -2%. And we have the top stocks that we combine, the home builders and the home construction, because a lot of those stocks or those companies overlap in what they do. And yes, we are ahead 5%, while one of these home builders is up just 1.3%, the other one is down 2%. And of course, that has to do with interest rates, because the housing area has been in trouble over the past year and a half, going on 2 years now. And they're starting to talk about raising interest rates because inflation is over 3% now. So just recently, over the past couple of days, they're bringing in the specter of us seeing rising interest rates before the end of the year rather than falling interest rates. So is that going to hurt the home builders and home construction? And we talked about Home Depot during the week. And yeah, Home Depot is being hurt because most of its profit comes from the construction area, the builders themselves who come in and get the wood and the products they need from Home Depot. So the question that we raised during the week is Home Depot affected by the lackluster performance in the home builders and home construction area? And yeah, very definitely they are. Income and growth portfolio, well, up 10.4%, and we're ahead of the top three out there that we discussed a couple of weeks ago in the letter, and I'll start putting that number in here to show that we are outperforming the top three dividend and growth portfolios, not only in dividends, but also in appreciation. So this is the kind of portfolio you want to start getting into at a relatively early age, because you want those dividends to build up in some of those stocks, where we brought out the potential of one of the stocks that we talked about in that dividend growth and income portfolio, where had you bought it 8 or 9 years ago, your dividends have tripled since then. Actually, your dividend payments are more than 15% of the price you originally paid, or 15% per year of the price that you originally paid for that stock. Plus, the stock itself is up about 700%. So yeah, you can't beat that. So anyway, again, our top stocks, whether you're in our top stocks or just using the computer program yourself, and a lot of you are using both, are doing very, very well. So we got to be very, very happy about that. The year is not half over yet. We've got another month to go for that. So we're 5 months into the year, and we are doing very, very well. I mean, look at some of these returns, especially with the S&P 500, our growth portfolio, up almost 20%. If you use the computer, you're up 25%. So yeah, and we use the computer, of course. So we're doing very, very well no matter what you did. But the clean surplus methodology is working, because our top stocks we use that clean surplus methodology, and we put it on the computer so you can use it yourself and look at stocks that we don't necessarily talk about, because there's only about 1,800 stocks on the computer program. Yeah, so we don't talk about all of them all the time, or else we would never stop talking. So folks, let's look at the 5-year results. Here's ARK Innovation down 30% over the past 5 years as of the end of 2025. S&P up 82%. Our top tech stocks that we select up 285%, almost more than doubling the ETF itself. And the top stocks in our semiconductor up 2.5, pretty close to 3 times the semiconductor, not this year, but over the past 5 years up until the end of 2025. So folks, yeah, we're doing the right thing using the clean surplus methodology, and let's keep our fingers crossed, because it still works and it makes common sense. When you read the book or you read our newsletters, yeah, the methodology makes common sense, because we're selecting the best stocks out of any ETF or any index. We're picking the above average stocks, and we let the below average stocks be bought by somebody else. So folks, We've had another great week in the market. It was a little hairy there for a while because of what's going on in the Middle East, but we're closing the week off pretty nice in here, and we'll just have to wait till next week to see what's going on in the rest of the world. So folks, go out, forget about the market, be with your loved ones. Most of all, stay healthy, stay safe. We'll see you back here in a couple of days.